Okay, girls, so you have a copy of this sheet, and we put the values on. But if you're watching again, just to make sure that you know what you're doing, we're just going to talk about this table here that you made when we did the exact value triangles, where we found the cosine of 30 and the sine of 30, the cosine of 45, the sine of 45, and the cos of 60 and sine of 60. Okay? Now, these points here, we said, were, cosine of the angle. Remember, this is that angle that I'm getting 30 degrees. That's how that came up there. So cosine of 30 degrees is root 3 on 2, and sine is 1/2. So you can see these values I'm putting on here. I'm going to go over to my symmetric point at 150, and my claim is that it has the same sine because I went up just as high to get to that point as I did to get to that point because of the symmetry. If I drew this angle, this little angle in here would be 30, wouldn't it? So it's symmetric to this side. So over here, the y value, or the sine value, stays the same, 1/2. And the cosine value is kind of the same, except it's negative. Okay? I think it would be a really good idea for you to get a pencil out and try to put the values here. Forget 90 for right now. We'll talk about that in a minute. But try to put the values of each point as you go around of cos theta, sine theta. Okay? So it's cos of 30 is root 3 on 2. Sine of 30 is 1/2. So I want you to put the values for each of these. So just pause, because I'm going to write them in while you're paused. Okay, here we go. Root 2 on 2, root 2 on 2. 1/2, root 3 on 2. I'm going to use my symmetry to go over here. So this will be negative root 2 on 2 and root 2 on 2. And negative 1/2 and root 3 on 2. Okay, I have to use my symmetry. When I go down here, both are negative. So I get negative root 3 on 2, symmetry with this point, negative 1/2. Now I'm symmetry with this point, both negative. Symmetry with this point. Maybe I'm off, sorry. Maybe I can just put this up a tiny bit more so you can see both. Now I have symmetry with this point, but cos is positive down here because I'm going this way, right? Positive. Symmetry with this point. Symmetry with this point. Okay, great. Now it's time just quickly to talk about the boundary values. This is a boundary, the x-axis and the y-axis. And this point right here, I think it's pretty easy to see that it's 1, 0. So that tells me that the cosine of 0 is 1, and the sine of 0 is 0. I could also call this 360 degrees here, or 0 degrees, either one. Okay? 90 degrees up here. What's the cosine of 90? Well, it's 0, 1, because that's that point. I went 0 on the x, but 1 on the y. Here's a boundary value over here, 180, because it's on the axis. What is that point? It's 0 on the y, but negative 1. Why is it negative 1? Because I'm in the unit circle. It's only over to 1. That's the radius. How about down here? 0 on the x, negative 1 on the y. So the cosine of 270 is 0, and the sine of 270 is negative 1. Okay. You need to have this chart filled out because this is what's going to be on your exam at the end of the year. Very exciting. Okay, good.